When you see a gaming PC on Amazon for around $500, it almost feels too good to be true. I mean, with how expensive some budget parts have become, it's surprising to see a full desktop selling this low. So I bought one just to see how bad, or maybe how surprisingly decent it could be. It's from a brand called STG Auburn, and it claims to be ready for gaming right out of the box. It comes with an Intel i7, an RX 590, and 16 gigabytes of RAM. On paper, that sounds fine, but what's on paper and what's actually inside are usually two very different things. So let's unbox it, test it, and find out if a $500 pre-built from Amazon is even worth your money. But before we get into it, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by EIoT Club. Black Friday is coming up, and from November 6th to December 6th, EIoT Club's running a massive promo. If you grab 2 or more eSIMs, you'll get 20% off automatically. And between November 20 and December 4, you can get up to 40% off on selected eSIMs. If you travel often or just need reliable data when you're abroad, this is honestly one of the easiest ways to stay connected. EIoT Club supports 4G and 5G worldwide, works with phones, smartwatches, and even in-car system, and setup only takes a few minutes. Once you arrive at your destination, just download the EIoT Club app. If you bought it through Amazon, enter your order number, tap download eSIM, and it installs instantly. Then make sure data roaming's on and you're good to go. Inside the app, there's an eSIM shop where you can buy plans directly, though Amazon Canada has the best Black Friday deals. You can grab one directly on Amazon Canada using the link in the description below. So if you're planning a trip soon or want a backup data plan, check out EIoT Club and take advantage of those Black Friday deals while they last. When it showed up, the box looked exactly like what you'd expect, just a plain brown cardboard box with the STG Auburn logo printed on the side. But when I opened it up, I was actually impressed. The inside was packed with decent foam protection. They even had foam inside the case to keep the GPU from shifting during shipping, which is something I honestly didn't expect from a budget pre-built. It also came with some paper guides and setup instructions, nothing special but organized enough. The included RGB keyboard and mouse combo, pretty basic, feels cheap, but hey, it works. The case itself though actually looks solid for the price. It's got a glass side panel, 2 front RGB fans, but no exhaust fan in the back. You can even change the fan colors using the included controller. But once I looked closer, I started noticing some red flags. A generic RX 590, only 1 stick of RAM, and a generic motherboard with basically no branding. And then there is the STG Auburn power supply. Not exactly a name you want powering your system. It's all functional, but you can tell right away they cut costs to hit that $500 price point. So here's what's actually inside. An Intel Core i7-8750H, and that's a laptop CPU running on an adapter board. A generic Radeon RX 590 8GB GPU, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, but only a single stick running at 2666 MHz, a 512GB SATA SSD, not NVMe, and a 500 watt STG Auburn power supply. For $500, that's not great. The parts are old, clearly refurbished, and some are repurposed from older laptops or office builds. But to be fair, the system booted up fine, it looked clean, and everything worked out of the box. The first boot actually went smoother than expected. There were no crashes, no weird setup issues, and surprisingly almost no bloatware. There were only a few pre-installed utilities, which is rare for a pre-built in this price range. After a few driver updates and Windows patches, it felt snappy enough for basic use. That SATA SSD isn't fast by today's standards, but it still booted in about 18 seconds, which isn't bad at all. Temps were fine during idle and stayed manageable under load, though the fans are loud at all times. If you're gaming with a headset on, it's okay, but in a quiet room, you will definitely hear it. Okay, so let's talk about some gaming benchmarks. In Fortnite, running performance mode on low details, it averaged around 104 FPS. That's actually pretty playable, but I did experience some stutters here and there. In Overwatch 2, running the low preset, it averaged around 120 FPS. Another very playable experience, everything felt fluid and consistent, and temps were decent as well. But then came Marvel Rivals. At the low preset with FSR performance mode, it averaged just 24 FPS. Enabling frame generation brought that up to 38, which helped, but it's still not ideal. This was quite expected since this game is so hard to run, but just puts everything in perspective. So yeah, it's fine for lighter esport titles, but once you hit newer AAA games, the thing struggles. Performance-wise, it's roughly on par with a GTX 1660 Super, decent for 1080p, but definitely not future-proof. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, not bad for $500. And yeah, the numbers aren't terrible, but that's only half the story. The real catch is what's inside. I opened it up to take a closer look, and it's clear how they hit that price. The motherboard is bare minimum, no heat sinks, limited power delivery, and only 2 RAM slots. The STG Auburn power supply has no efficient efficiency rating, thin cables, and it just feels cheap. If you ever plan to upgrade the GPU or CPU, replace this power supply first. Even a $50 unit from LADTech or MSI would be a huge improvement. The CPU cooler is small, basically a small fan with a heatsink on an adapter bracket. Temps were actually okay with my testing, and while the cooler is small, it managed to keep the CPU from throttling. Still, you can tell it's not designed for heavy gaming sessions. And yeah, the SSD is SATA, not NVMe. You can feel it when loading larger games or transferring files. It's fine for now, but it's another reminder that the system uses older tech across the board. The good news, you can actually upgrade a few things. You could add an NVMe drive using the M.2 slot, swap the cooler for a low-profile tower air cooler, and upgrade to dual-channel RAM. But since it's using a laptop CPU, there's no real upgrade path for the processor. You could also upgrade the GPU to something like an RX 6600 later on, but again, only if you replace that power supply first. With those changes, it could be a decent 1080p gaming system, but you'd be spending more money just to fix its weak points. In daily use, the system feels fine for lighter tasks. It handles web browsing, YouTube, and even light editing without much issue, but of course, it's not ideal for anything intensive. Even at idle, the fan curve is aggressive, and without software control, it's always audible. It's not necessarily a bad experience overall, but it's not something I'd want to rely on long term. Another thing I noticed is the power supply noise. It has this faint buzzing sound, probably coil whine or just cheap components, and it never really goes away. For casual users or students who just need a desktop that can game occasionally, this system could make sense. It's plug and play, it looks flashy on a desk, and you don't have to mess with cables or BIOS settings. But if you're trying to build something with longevity or plan to stream, edit videos, or play newer titles, this won't hold up for long. If you build a PC yourself, here's what a realistic $500 DIY setup could look like. A Ryzen 5 5500 for around $76, 16 gigs of PNY DDR4 RAM for about $65, an MSI B550M motherboard for $80, and a WD Blue 500 gig SSD for $55. Add an MSI Mag A550BN power supply for around $58, and a Cooler Master Q300L case for about $40. For graphics, even an Amazon RX 580 or a reliable used GPU would make the system far more balanced overall. That setup would deliver more consistent frame rates, better thermals, and improved upgrade potential while still staying within a $500 budget. You're not necessarily getting scammed with this pre-built, but you're also not getting good value. So is a $500 gaming PC from Amazon worth it? Honestly, it really isn't, at least this one. Sure, it runs Fortnite and Overwatch fine, but beyond that, it just doesn't make sense. The parts are old, the fans are loud, and the power supply is definitely questionable. It works, but it's not something I trust long term. If you can stretch your budget or build something yourself, you'll get far better performance, quality, and peace of mind. So my verdict is simple, just skip it. Either build your own or buy used from a reputable seller. For $500 bucks, this one just isn't worth it.